The global pharmaceutical market is a titan. It is unique, volatile, and relentlessly competitive. To kick things off, I want to take a moment to share the foundation behind the program we are discussing today. My journey spans over 25 years as a senior executive steering pharmaceutical management and marketing operations across dynamic Asian markets. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of leading commercial strategies for elite global multinationals as well as prominent branded generic giants. But beyond driving corporate strategy, my true passion has always been talent development. Alongside my corporate roles, I've spent years lecturing in pharmaceutical marketing and designing specialized training programs for professionals at every level, with a very specific focus on product specialists and medical delegates. If we look closely at the entire pharmaceutical ecosystem, we all know there is one definitive pivot point where strategy meets reality: the medical sales call. It is the single most critical touch point for commercial success. If the medical delegate fails to deliver in those few precious minutes, the entire organizational effort, the R&D, the marketing expenses, and the logistics effectively go to waste. I have analyzed this scenario in many cases. That is exactly why I developed Mastering the Pharmaceutical Sales Call program. This program isn't just theory. It is a battlefield tested framework designed to transform standard sales interactions into high-yield, clinically consultative engagements. Today, I'm excited to share how this program can empower your field force, optimize your market execution, and deliver measurable commercial value to your organization. Today's discussion is planned to demonstrate the content and a sizable description about the pharmaceutical sales call, starting from prospecting up to call follow-up. We are discussing 7 key points in detail. Let's dive in. In this environment, the product specialist is not just a salesperson. He is performing a consultative sales call. Consultative selling is a relationship-based process where the salesperson acts as an expert consultant or strategic orchestrator. Instead of pushing a product, you ask high-value questions to uncover the healthcare professional's specific clinical pain points and then construct a narrative backed by clinical evidence to position your brand as the optimal solution. Hope you got that correct. When we move through today's presentation, if you have any query, please drop a text in the comment section to make this effort more productive. I will answer that. Okay, with that we'll move forward. To stand before a medical specialist, the medical delegate's confidence must be rooted in 3 pillars. The boardroom and the training managers should pay serious attention to this matter. Number 1, product mastery. Knowing your drug's mechanism of action, efficacy, and safety profile are mandatory. Next, clinical anatomy. Say, as an example, if you are detailing a cardiovascular drug, obviously you must understand the heart's anatomy. Then you should have a sizable knowledge about how your drug absorbs to the body. Means you should know the anatomy of the digestive system, then the liver for how metabolism takes place, and the kidneys for excretion process. It is not only the heart anatomy and physiology. The art of storytelling is the 3rd pillar. You should be a master of transforming this cold data into a relatable, persistent journey. Next few minutes, I will take you through the comprehensive consultative sales call process. Before that, the medical delegate must be agile enough to twist the plan based on the healthcare professional's time, the overall environmental vibe and mood of the doctor, But you should master this formal structure. It does not mean always that you should follow it from A to Z. Before you present in front of the medical professional, you should attend your homework. That is number one in our sales call process. What is that? That is strategic prospecting and pre-call planning. For a medical product specialist, the time spent before entering a doctor's chamber often dictates the success of the entire interaction. In a consultative model, your goal is to move from being a vendor to a resource, because the doctor should understand there is something resourceful for him in this discussion. Prospecting starts with finding the right patient profile, identifying where your product creates the most value. As a medical delegate, it is incredibly easy to fall into the high prescriber trap. We look at a list, find the doctors who write the most prescriptions, and focus all our energy there. But here is the problem. If a doctor writes 100 prescriptions a month for a first line drug where your brand is a second line therapy, they are highly unlikely to switch to your product just because you ask them to. Instead of chasing high volume, the top performing delegates chase the right patient profile. You need to look for the doctors who manage the specific patient types where your drug actually solves a clinical gap. Think about it this way. You are handling a second line drug, and when a patient is stable on their current first line therapy, our role is to support that stability. Our focus belongs to the patients who are not achieving their treatment goals, those experiencing therapeutic failure, managing intolerable side effects, or navigating complex comorbidities that standard treatment doesn't simply account for. When you know the exact patient segment your drug protects, you easily know exactly which medical specialist needs to hear from you to prescribe your brand for better patient compliance. Next, you also can review the doctor's recent publications, clinical trial involvements, or social media presence like LinkedIn or Twitter to gauge their current clinical interests. You should know what is their preferred communication style, data-driven or anecdotal. What are their specific clinical pain points? What is the current patient volume? Are there new protocols or formulary changes in this specific hospital or clinic? Which competitor is currently the gold standard here? What is the specific reason the doctor chooses them over your solution? And ensure your tablet, that is your device, is charged enough. The correct clinical study is bookmarked, and any physical samples or brochures are pristine, no bent corners. If you are prospecting and planning your sales call, it is not only enhance your knowledge, but your confidence too. Prospecting and pre-call preparation are often mistaken for one-off tasks performed at the start of a career or the beginning of a quarter. In reality, they function as the metabolic process of professional sales. If you stop prospecting and pre-call preparation, the health of your territory eventually fails. It's proven. Here is why these disciplines must remain an ongoing practice because of the dynamic nature of healthcare data. As an example, a doctor who was non-user 6 months ago may have recently attended a global conference, read a new clinical trial, or seen a shift in their patient demographics and changed his treatment method. Next, the clinical guidelines are updated frequently. Hospital and insurance formularies are changing, and the doctor may have transferred or changed his clinic. You can find all above information only through prospecting. Remind yourself that you are not there to sell a pill or piece of equipment. You are there to provide a clinical solution that improves patient outcomes. This shift in mindset changes your body language and tone from a solicitor to a peer. Having strong prospecting and pre-call preparation, we are now moving to our second step in our sales call. What is that? Call opening. How you are going to open your call. Now you are inside the doctor's chamber. When you open the call, the number one rule, don't pull your brochure out. Start with the purpose, like secure your access, creates positive first impression, capture the doctor's attention and turn attention into interest and focus a winning sales dialogue. Your brochure can't do that. As an example, you can start, Doctor, many patients on standard AC inhibitors still struggle with nocturnal hypertension. I would like to show how my product addresses that specific gap. Because through prospecting, you already know nocturnal hypertension is a clinical pain point for this particular healthcare professional. Or you can start by bridge the gap between your last conversation and today's clinical insight. As an example, you may say, last time we spoke and you mentioned the challenge of patient adherence with insomnia. I have brought some new real-world evidence that specifically addresses that. This will surely capture the attention of the doctor. Through prospecting and pre-call preparation, you already have an idea about the clinical pain point of the healthcare professional. When you address his problem, he feels this is important and use secure access. That is the importance of prospecting and call preparation. It eases and secures your access to the doctor's chamber and open path for delightful call opening. Next rule, do not start your conversation with why. Say as an example, Doctor, why do you prescribe my competitor's brand and not mine? It's a high risk move that often backfires. In professional detailing, this is known as a confrontational opening. Physicians make decisions based on patient profiles, safety data, and personal experience, forcing them to explain those complex variables in a this versus that format feels reductive. Instead of questioning the doctor's choice, the product specialist should focus on the unmet need or the patient profile. The goal is to move from a product-centric question to a patient-centric observation. I will further explain. Avoid aggressive approach like, why aren't you using my brand? Choose consultative approach like, doctor, for which specific patient profile do you find the current standard of care most challenging? In this way, you are moving out from product-centric to patient-centric and opening a path to place your product as the better choice. I hope it is clear now. Now we are moving to another important area in your sales call, probing and listening. That is the third step. You should be a good listener and master of the art of asking questions. Now with proper call opening, you are developing your story with the healthcare professional. In this caliber professional consultative sales call, Probing and listening are the engines that drive the entire interaction. These two skills ensure you aren't just delivering a monologue, but you are instead conducting a clinical diagnostic of the doctor's needs. Probing is not just asking questions, it's about peeling back layers. In a medical context, a doctor may give a standard answer like, I'm happy with my current protocol. Probing helps you to find the hidden friction points in his answer. You can use open-ended probing. Start with how, what, oh, tell me about. This forces the doctor to share their logic. In an example, you can ask, tell me about the specific challenges you face when managing patient adherence for elderly patients in this therapy. Now the doctor is compelled to explain. The doctor tends to provide open-ended feedback rather than a definitive response like yes or no. Next, you can further drill it down. Once an issue is identified, go deeper. As an example, you can put across like this. You mentioned adherence is tough. Is that due to the side effect profile or the dosing frequency? Now the proper conversation continues. Finally, it helps you to discover the gap. Probing allows you to find the distance between where the doctor is and where they want their patient outcomes to be. Your product then becomes the bridge across that gap. On the other end, a professional delegate is an active listener. It is beyond just hearing. In many cases, listening is the most underrated sales skill. In the doctor's chamber, the physician is often rushed. When you listen intently, you demonstrate professional respect and build a partnership rather than a transaction. Doctors often drop hints about their preferences or frustrations. If you are busy thinking about your next slide, you will miss this. After asking a tough probing question, be silent. Let the doctor think. Often the most valuable information comes after a few seconds of silence, when the doctor elaborates on a complex clinical thought. Try to summarize what you heard. As an example, you can say, if I understand correctly, your main priority is reducing the risk of retinopathy in your diabetic patients. This proves you are listening and ensure you don't offer a solution for the wrong problem. After you understand the gap of satisfaction, we are moving to the fourth step of our sales call process. That is, position your product using the FAB model. What does FAB stand for? Features, advantages, and benefits. Features explains what is your product. Example, your product is a selective beta blocker. Next, pitch the advantages. What it does, like higher bioavailability. Then tag with benefits. Why the patient wins. In an example, once a day dosing leads to better compliance. Then show proofs. Use clinical trial data. Example, according to the given credible study, there was a 20% reduction in secondary events such as side effects. Means you are sealing your story with clinical evidence. I hope it's clear to you now. Now I will recap what we have discussed up to this point. First, we understood the importance of prospecting and pre-call preparation. Next, we discussed how to secure access in the doctor's chamber with the professional cold opening. Then we discussed the importance of probing and listening. And last, positioning your product using the FAB model. And next, we are reaching the most tactical part of our sales call. That is the fifth step, handling objections. Objection handling is the process of addressing a doctor's concerns, hesitations, or pushbacks in a way that builds trust and moves the conversation forward. In a professional consultative sales call, an objection isn't a stop sign. See objections as a buying signal. If they object to a product on cost or side effects, it means they are considering the drug. For a medical product specialist, handling objections requires a shift from being defensive to being diagnostic. Next, I'm explaining a proven framework to handle these moments with professional poise. The LSCPA model. What is this LSCPA model? L stands for listen, S for share, C for clarify, P for present, and A for ask. This is a standard behavioral framework used by high-level consultants to de-escalate tension and address the root cause of an objection. First, listen. Already we have discussed the importance of being a good listener. Do not interrupt. Let the doctor finish their entire thought. Sometimes the act of venting the objection reduces its power. Remember that. Then share or acknowledge. Validate the doctor's perspective without necessarily agreeing with the conclusion. Example, the objection is on the price of your product, right? So you can validate it like this. I understand why your patients are out of pocket. Cost is a significant concern for you, especially in this clinic. This does not mean that you agree with the conclusion. You are acknowledging. Next, clarify. Use probing questions to ensure you are answering the real concern, not just the surface one. Example, is your concern mainly the initial cost, or is it the long-term value compared to the current generic option? Now we are bringing the logic in by agreeing that your product represents a higher initial investment than current solution, but it yields immense long-term benefits. In healthcare, the true measure of value lies in long-term efficacy and patient care, even though the cost is a concern. Then present. Offer the evidence which addresses specific points like clinical data, case studies, or health economics. Last one, ask or check. Confirm that you have resolved the doubt. Example, does that data on long-term outcomes help ease your concern regarding the price? When you validate their concern instead of becoming defensive, you transition from a product pusher to a trusted advisor. It demonstrates that you understand their operational realities and care more about the right fit than a quick sale. Most objections in the doctor's chamber fall into below 3 buckets. Keep yourself pre-prepared for those objections. Number 1, the status quo objections, like I'm happy with my current protocol. You can disrupt these objections with data. Introduce a specific patient profile where the current protocol might be falling short. Skepticism objections are the next. The doctor does not believe your data. He might say, I don't think the safety profile is proven enough. In this scenario, you can leverage authority. Refer to peer-reviewed journals, key opinion leader opinions, or phase 3 trial results. The last one is experience-based objections. Doctor might say, I had one patient who had a side effect on this. So what you can do? Emphasize and acknowledge the individual case. Then provide the broader real world evidence statistics. When doctor objects, don't take it personally. It is critique on the product or the data, not you. Don't argue. Winning an argument often means losing the sale. Use yes instead of yes but. Don't guess. If a doctor asks a clinical question, you can answer or you don't know. Be a professional. Say doctor, that is very specific clinical question. Let me consult our medical affairs team and get you the exact data by tomorrow. This builds massive trust. Stay calm. Lower your vocal pitch slightly and maintain steady eye contact. Throughout your call, keep eye contact. On the other end, you can isolate the objection. How? Example, is that the only thing holding you back from trying this with your next 5 patients? Now the doctor has a point to think again. Remember, master objection handlers often win the sales call. Now we are reaching the latter part of our professional sales call. You should first recognize the buying signals and close with commitment. This is our 6th step in our sales call. What is that? Recognize the buying signals and close with commitment. You might hear this signal at the beginning, at the time of you enter the chamber. Stop talking when you hear the buying signal. Few examples I'll give for buying signals. How does this interact with metformin or NSAIDs? Is this covered by insurance? Do you have samples I can start a patient on? And do you offer discounts to patients? There can be many buying signals like above. The golden rule. When you hit a buying signal, stop the lecture and move to the close. When you reach the closing, be specific. Don't just say thanks. Example, doctor, for your next 3 patients presenting with uncontrolled stage 2 hypertension, will you initiate them on my product? If doctor says, leave some brochures and I'll think about it, means what? There is no proper commitment. You must politely push for next action. Doctor, I'm happy to leave those. To make sure they are useful, what specific data point you would be looking for in these brochures to help you decide for your next hypertension patient? Sometimes the close isn't a sale. It is an advancement of the relationship. It secures a commitment for a deeper educational or institutional step. As an example, since you are interested in a long-term safety data, I'll arrange a 10-minute call with our medical science lesion. Does next Tuesday morning work for you? You are showing how professional you are. Next, never leave the chamber without a confirmed date for the next interaction. Ensure the doctor has the necessary hospital codes, pharmacy information, or patient education materials. Even though the doctor has the intent, but the commitment will fail if the tools are lacking. A professional call should feel like a collaborative agreement to improve patient care. If you feel like you are pushing, go back to the probing phase. You likely haven't uncovered a strong enough clinical pain point yet. The last part of our consultative sales call is the follow-up. This is the 7th step that we are discussing. In the medical world, the sales rarely happens inside the chamber. It happens in the days and weeks after you leave. For a medical delegate, the follow-up is what transforms a pleasant conversation into a consistent prescribing habit. Without a structured follow-up, you are entirely leaving your territory's growth to hope and memory. Neither are reliable sales strategies. Doctors interact with dozens of people daily. Even if your presentation was brilliant, the clinical noise of their practice will drown out your message maximum within 48 hours. So you can do a professional follow-up through email or text within 24 hours by reinforcing the key clinical takeaway and signals that you are a disciplined professional. It transitions your product from something we talked about to a solution I'm currently considering. A doctor may agree to try your product on a patient, but the intent often fails at the point of execution. Example, they forget where the samples are, or the nurse isn't familiar with the new protocol. Following up allows you to troubleshoot these friction points before they become abandonment points. Example, you can give a call or send a text, "Doctor, I'm following up to see if your staff had any questions about the new refrigeration requirements for the samples I left on Tuesday." Means you are finding a way to reach out to the doctor to remind. In consultative selling, you aren't a vendor. You are a partner in patient outcomes. Continuous follow-up proves you care about the result, not just the sales order. If you promised a specific clinical paper or a case study during the call, the following up is your chance to deliver. This builds massive credibility. In many clinics and hospitals, the doctor makes the decision, but the nurses, pharmacists, or administrative staff execute it. Do not forget to follow up with the support staff who ensures your product is front and center when the doctor is ready to prescribe. If the staff likes and trusts you, they will often remind the doctor of your solution when the right patient walks in. In my final thoughts, I would like to emphasize the process that we have discussed today throughout the last few minutes is a map. It is not a cage. You must adapt it based on the time constraints. If you have 30 seconds in a hallway, skip to the core benefit and request for follow-up. When you adopt it, keep concern of the healthcare professional's temperament. Some want deep data, while others want the bottom line for their patients. And if the clinic is hectic, be the solution, not interruption. Success in pharmaceutical sales is the interaction of sound product knowledge, clinical expertise, that is your anatomy and physiology knowledge, and a disciplined sales call process. You are the bridge between a laboratory breakthrough and a patient's recovery. Master art of the story. Respect the doctor's time, and you will secure that next prescription. All the very best.